I'm Dr. Heather with Well Fit and Fed, and today we're talking about Brene Brown's work on braving. If you're not familiar, first of all, say hello when you arrive. Give me a thumbs up or hearts, and please feel free to comment as the broadcast is live or after. And I'll put a link to the written version of this whole deal. Hello, whoever just checked in. Hi, Edward. I'm so glad you're here. Edward, this work is going to be key for you, so do stay tuned. So I am camped out in my friend's house because our bathrooms are being renovated. We have no water. And so this is both my office and my room in my home. And so bear with me here as I sit on the floor and go through this work with you. I'm also going to be looking over here a lot because her work is way too important not to reference the notes that I've taken, and so forgive me for continuing to look over this direction. But if you're not familiar with Brene Brown, first of all, she went live on a TED Talk a few years ago, and the whole talk went viral. It was on shaming and authenticity, and she has written several books, and she is incredible for anyone wanting to tap into their emotional intelligence, get through a tough time, or just improve themselves. She's incredible. And so she recently released a book called Braving the Wilderness, and it's a great book. I went and heard her speak in Seattle 2 weeks ago, and she gave us a free book. Thanks, Brene. And unfortunately, she didn't touch on the braving work that I was hoping that she would, but she touched on some other things. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from her on that was she has a quote in the book that she really expands on, and she says, hard back, soft front, wild heart. Hard back, soft front, wild heart. What she means by that is that we have a spine in situations that we need it. We remain tender and open to others who we either don't understand or who are in circumstances less fortunate than ours. And wild heart means we live a life of adventure and we go after it and we live the life that we have the opportunity to now and just going for it. So I love that. Hard back, soft front, wild heart. It's kind of my new mantra. But the work that really resonated with me in the book, and she doesn't actually even spend that much time on it. For some reason it hit me hard, and I think it's probably because I need to work on it, is her braving work. Now, braving is simply an acronym, and how cool is that? Genius, Brene. It doesn't actually have to do with being brave, but in a way it kind of does. So we're going to go through it. So each letter represents a word, just in case you don't know what an acronym is. And so we're going to go through each of those, and I'm going to try to illustrate it with a little story. So B is boundaries, okay? And let me back up. Brene uses this braving work in reference to trust in relationships, corporate or family or otherwise. And her whole concept is, for a long time, when a relationship is broken, the person who's been hurt is saying, I don't trust you anymore. But that doesn't allow the opportunity to work on that issue, because trust is an all-encompassing word that means a million different things, and it's very hard to identify where the breakdown has happened. And so she designed this acronym BRAVING to identify different sections of where trust breaks down. I think it's incredible. So B, boundaries. When that word boundary came out, when I was, I don't know, it was a few years back when people started using it more regularly, my mom and I were having a very robust conversation, and I finally said something along the lines of, well, this is why I set boundaries with you. And she said, you don't set boundaries with your mother. And I said, Mom, mothers were the reason boundaries were invented. And she didn't like that very much. And so I thought it was kind of funny. But how Brene describes it, and I like this. I love all of her little quotes about this, so I'm going to kind of use them specifically. She says, when we respect each other's boundaries, she says, I will say no when I feel I need to, and I am willing to hear your no when you are employing your boundaries. I love that. So just simple, you'll respect mine when I say they are what they are, and that comes up, right? Like, it's often the people who we need to put these boundaries in place for the most that disrespect them the most, right? Or they don't understand them, or they don't think they're valid. And so what's so important in a trust relationship is that you are willing to say to me, I may not understand why you're employing that boundary, but I'm going to respect it. That's huge. Number 2, R, for reliability. Now, you know that person. The one who does exactly what they say they're going to do, who you don't ever have to ask twice, you don't ever have to check back in. That person for me was Michael. He was my office manager, and he was with me for 6 years. And it got to the point that I barely had to speak. He just anticipated what my needs were as a boss. And what I didn't realize at the time is how intimately and directly that reliability was intertwined with trust. I didn't think about the fact that I trust him. I just did implicitly. And so doing what you say you're going to do over and over and over again, and not overcommitting. And what does she say? She says, I love this, staying aware of your competencies and limitations so that you don't overpromise and you can deliver on commitments and balance competing priorities. That's a big one, right? We're busy. Hey, Allie, we're super busy. And there's a tendency to overcommit and say yes before you really think about whether that's something that you can follow through on. And that's a big piece of the reliability, is saying no, even though it's such a great idea and you'd really love to do it, but knowing that your competing priorities and balancing all the other obligations that you have are not going to allow you to follow through, and then it becomes a reliability issue. Hi, Neil. And so I think that's really super key. Reliability. So we have boundaries, we have reliability. It's a braving acronym. What are we on to? A. What does A stand for? Accountability. This is a good one. So I have a girlfriend who's a sorority sister, and she said that clapping was just too gauche for all of these sorority girls. So instead, when they wanted to clap, they used snaps, literally just snap instead of. And so in my office, I employed this idea of snapping for accountability. I wanted to reward it. I wanted when someone said, oh, that was me, I screwed that up, I failed on the billing, I forgot to do this, that we rewarded that honesty, that integrity, that coming forth with ownership, and that it was a safe place to admit your mistakes and that it didn't affect the relationship. And so we would always do snaps for accountability. And so accountability is also part of the trust relationship. And I like this. It says, I can trust you if when you make a mistake, you are willing to own it, apologize, and make amends. And I can also only trust and respect you if when I make a mistake, you are willing to let me own it and offer true forgiveness. Love it. Okay, moving on. Vault. Okay, this one's good. This is, honestly, this is one of mine. I don't know why. Well, I kind of do, but let me give you an example. When I was in college, I had a girlfriend, and I spoke about a crush she had on somebody to other people. It was not my information to share, and she held me accountable. She took me aside and literally broke up with me. We are no longer friends. We never became friends after that issue. She said, I cannot trust you anymore. You have hurt my feelings deeply. I gave you this information. It was supposed to stay in the vault. It did not. And that was the first time I knew gossiping wasn't good. Who doesn't know that? But it was the first time I saw the deep effect it has on a relationship. And so the idea is vault, that what you tell me stays in the vault. But even more importantly, and I love this piece, that you don't share with me information that's not yours to share. That you don't share with me information that's not yours to share. And I don't share with you information that's not mine to share. Have you ever been in that situation where someone comes and you guys end up gossiping, and maybe it's them gossiping more than you and you're listening, and they leave and you think to yourself, geez, I wonder what she says when I'm not in the room. Do you ever have that, right? that is all about the vault. So it's not just you holding on to a secret, but it's also you not allowing people to share information that's not theirs, putting a stop to that. So that's the vault. Then we move on to integrity. I got a new car many, many years ago. It was a Nissan Murano, and she was beautiful, and she had very wide hips, and I hadn't gotten used to those hips yet. So I was parked, and I had a friend in the passenger seat, and I was starting to back up, and I did not see that there was a shiny black BMW on my right. And then I heard the sound, and so I pulled back in, got out of the car, went and looked at the damage, and I got back in the car and started to write a note. And my friend, and I think she just really didn't want me to feel badly, said, "Look, I will not tell a soul if you just leave." And I thought, oh my gosh, that didn't even cross my mind. And I thought, I would just not think of not leaving a note. Now, there's other situations where I would not necessarily do the courageous thing. I would do the thing that's easy. I would not do the right thing. I would do the thing that's maybe funner, faster, and easier. And so that particular situation was one that really taught me, like, oh, there are certain things that are just non-negotiable for me, but yet there are other things where I'm slippery. Okay, so what Brene says about that, she says choosing courage over comfort, and choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. And practicing your values, not just professing them. It's so good, I'm going to read it again. Choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values, not just professing them. Hold on, I got to shift. Oh. Can any of you sit on your feet for a long period of time? I cannot. We're moving on. That was integrity. Non-judgment is the N of braving. My sisters will tell you that I speak with great authority all of the time. Some of the time, I know what I'm talking about. Some of the time, I think I know what I'm talking about. And some of the time, I'm pretty sure I don't know what I'm talking about. But yet I speak with grand authority. And I think I do that because I have in the past feared or had situations that made me fear judgment, and that judgment putting a spike in a relationship that I thought was immobile. And so I think just naturally I gravitate but putting myself in situations where I'm not going to be judged. I'm afraid of it. And so that whole non-judgment part of this trust relationship is knowing that I can come to you and say, oh, I actually don't know how to do that, or I don't know anything about that, and not fearing that you're going to judge me as stupid, judge me as whatever, think I'm lesser, think you're better. All of those things are really important in a deep sort of adult relationship, is that non-judgment. And so I think that's a really good one. That's a hard one to understand until you catch yourself in the situation. My favorite, generosity. That's our last one. Braving, with the G at the end. I didn't get this one right away. And then when I read it kind of over and over, I kind of, well, at first, hi Carrie Ann. At first, I kind of thought of generosity as like goods, time, money. But how she describes it, I'm going to just read her quote because it's way too good. Our relationship is a trusting relationship if you can assume the most general things about my words, intentions, and actions. I will do the same. When in doubt, we seek to understand. So how often does it happen that somebody does something and you go, whoa, what? Why'd they do that? You know, and you immediately either judge or you don't assume the best about their actions. Like maybe there's an explanation you don't know. And that we don't seek to understand. We don't go directly to that person and say, hey, am I missing information? I saw this happen, or you said this, and here's what I thought, what actually was going on. And so that generosity in the relationship builds trust, because if I know that you're not going to just cut me off, judge me, go to somebody else or whatever, that you're going to offer me the most generous of your openness, kindness, understanding, assuming that I have the best intentions, then that builds such a nice relationship, right? So you can see why this work is impactful, this whole braving concept. So let's go back. Boundaries for the B, reliability for the R, accountability for the A, vault for the V, integrity, is that what it was? Yes, integrity, that's the car, choosing courage over comfort, and choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, and easy, integrity, N, non-judgment, and G, generosity. If you have not heard this whole thing, go back and listen to the beginning, because this is all on Brene Brown's work from her new book, Braving the Wilderness, and it is powerful stuff, and it's really good. So if you get the chance to go back and listen, do. And if you have questions, let's start a dialogue down below. I'm curious, A, not accountability, A, what is the letter that resonates with you the most? B, what is the letter that you think has been the hardest for you to accept in others? I think is such a big one. And where do you see some of the stuff playing out in your own relationships, your work relationships, your home relationships? So I wanted to make sure I shared all that with you today. I am so excited that I got so many people listening in today. It was awesome. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm going to do another Facebook Live sometime next week. I'll be in Arizona in the hot sun, so maybe I'll try to do it outside. And thanks for tuning in. This is Dr. Heather with Well Fit and Fed.